1 minute ago, everything changed. Thousands of British travellers across the UK suddenly found themselves blocked, stranded, and banned from Europe. Not by terrorists, not by health restrictions, but by a silent digital system nobody warned them about. As airport screens flash red, flights collapse, families panic, and social media explodes, one terrifying truth becomes clear, sir. This could happen to you next. What just unfolded in Finland is not a glitch, not an accident. It is the beginning of a continent-wide crackdown that will hit every British traveller unless something changes fast. It starts before sunrise, the kind of cold, heavy hour where the world is half asleep and airports feel like ghost towns. But today, Heathrow Terminal 3 is anything but quiet. At 5 a.m, confusion spreads like wildfire. A red flash on a boarding screen, a warning nobody understands, a gate that suddenly refuses to open, and the first British traveller hears the words that will ripple across the entire country. Entry data missing. Sarah Mitchell, a 34-year-old teacher from Kent, stands frozen at gate 27 with her 2 kids. She has the wedding dress in her hand luggage. She has printed itineraries, confirmations, emails, everything. Her passport is valid. Her tickets are confirmed. Her bags are already checked in. Nothing is wrong. Nothing should be wrong. But the system doesn't care. Her boarding pass scans and the gate rejects her. The airline staff stare at their screens, helpless. The passengers behind her mutter nervously. The clock keeps counting down. 5 minutes later, the gate closes. 10 minutes later, the pilot walks away. And then the final blow. The entire flight is cancelled. No explanation, no warning, just chaos. And while Sarah tries to understand what went wrong, the same nightmare is erupting across London, Manchester, Edinburgh, Birmingham. Everywhere at once, business travellers miss life-changing meetings. Students trying to reach Finland for study programmes are blocked without reason. A retired couple who sold everything to start a peaceful life in Lapland are now stranded in a Premier Inn near Gatwick, watching their future fall apart in real time. One passenger tells Sky News that they said my passport wasn't linked to something called EES. I don't even know what that is. Nobody told us. Not the airline, not the government, nobody. By sunrise, more than 3,000 British travellers are stuck in terminals, hotels, waiting lounges and airport cafes, all victims of a digital border rule that seemed to appear out of thin air. But here's the twist. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a glitch. This was enforcement. Finland has quietly flipped the switch on the EU's new entry/exit system, EES. A digital border system designed to track every non-EU traveller with biometric scans, fingerprints and pre-registered data. A system that Britain, after Brexit, is now fully subject to. A system that requires every British citizen to be uploaded, logged, approved and validated before stepping onto an EU-bound plane. There's just one problem. Nobody told the British public, not the airlines, not the travel industry, not the UK government. And the result is a perfect storm. A British Airways employee speaking anonymously admits the truth. We got the directive 48 hours before Finland enforced it. 48 hours! No time to update our systems, no time to train staff, no time to warn passengers. We were blindsided. When the first flights landed at Helsinki that morning, border officers saw something alarming. Hundreds of British passports with no EES data logged. Their automated instructions were brutally simple: reject boarding at origin. That single decision triggered a chain reaction that spiralled through airports like a bomb going off. Flight cancellations, mass delays, confused travellers and furious passengers flooding TikTok, Twitter and Facebook with videos demanding answers. And when outrage hits social media, politics follows. Within hours, Conservative MP Daniel Hargreaves fires off a tweet accusing Labour of botching post-Brexit travel arrangements. Nigel Farage appears live on GB News, claiming he predicted this years ago and that Britain is now begging Brussels for permission to travel. Downing Street tries to calm the storm, insisting this is an EU enforcement error. But the public isn't convinced. In fact, they're furious because this doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like a betrayal. It feels like the collapse of a promise made years ago. It feels like the moment British travellers realise they no longer control their own borders or even over their own holidays. And the most chilling part, Finland is just the beginning. 26 more EU countries are next. So what exactly is this mysterious system that has just turned British airports into chaos zones? What is EES, the entry-exit system, and how did it suddenly become the most powerful gatekeeper in Europe? On paper, the idea sounds harmless. The EU wants tighter digital borders. Instead of stamping passports, they want to log your fingerprints, scan your face, match your biometric profile, track your travel history, and store everything in one enormous database. For them, it's modernisation. For travellers, it's supposed to make crossing borders faster, but the reality is something very different because the system designed for security has turned into a bureaucratic trap that caught thousands of ordinary people completely off guard. And here's the uncomfortable truth. EES was always going to hit the UK harder than anyone else. Before Brexit, British travellers were EU citizens. No queues, no checks, no biometric registration. You simply walk through. Now, every British passport is treated exactly like a passport from India, Brazil, or the United States. The EU calls them third country travellers. And that single label changes everything. It means no entry without full biometric compliance, no boarding without approval, no exceptions, no warning, no second chances. If your data isn't registered, the system rejects you automatically, instantly, and without mercy. But here's where the outrage begins. Nobody, not the airlines, not the travel industry, not even the UK government, bothered to clearly tell the British public that this new system was mandatory. People weren't given instructions. Airports weren't prepared. Airlines had no updated software. And border staff across Europe didn't get proper training. Meanwhile, Finland quietly decided it would become the first country to fully enforce the rule with zero grace period, zero transition, and just 48 hours of advance notice to airlines who had absolutely no way to warn millions of passengers in time. Inside one airline briefing, an employee later leaked what happened. They told us Finland is enforcing EES immediately. Any passenger not pre-registered must be refused boarding. We asked how to check that. No one knew. We asked where passengers should register. No one knew. We asked what to tell them. No one knew, but they just said, follow the directive. It was madness. That madness is now unfolding in every UK airport. Confused staff, red error screens, frantic families, managers making phone calls to hotlines that don't answer. And the worst part, passengers are being punished for something they never even heard of. Take Gareth Thompson, a software engineer from Manchester. He tried to reroute his flight through Sweden thinking he could bypass Finland's rules. But the moment he reached the gate, the same red warning appeared. It doesn't matter where you land, the agent told him. If you enter the Schengen zone, you need EES. We weren't told either. Gareth spent £600 on hotels and taxis. No refund, no help, no answers, only anger. Stories like his are everywhere. A retired couple from Cornwall stranded after selling their home to move abroad. Students missing academic deadlines. Families missing weddings and funerals. Workers missing meetings that could change their careers. These aren't small inconveniences. These are life-changing consequences. Meanwhile, social media is exploding. On TikTok, frustrated travellers are posting videos saying the EU just banned me from boarding my flight. On Twitter, hashtag Starmer travel crisis trends for hours as people demand accountability. And every comment points to the same question. How did the UK government not see this coming? The European Commission insists Britain was formally informed. Finland insists it followed EU law. Airlines insist they had no time to prepare, and the only people paying the price are ordinary British citizens who suddenly find themselves locked out of Europe by a digital border they never agreed to. And here's where the politics gets even more explosive. This isn't just a travel problem. It's a Brexit problem. For years, voters were promised smoother travel, better control, more independence. But today, British citizens can't even board a flight to Finland without EU approval. People are now asking, is this what sovereignty looks like? Is this what we traded for? A future where the EU still controls the systems we depend on, but the UK has no seat at the table to influence them? Because right now, Britain is not a partner. Britain is a passenger, and the EU's new border machine is in the cockpit. Downing Street's official statement only fuels the fire. They call Finland's move unexpected enforcement. They say they weren't properly notified. They say they're urgently engaging with Brussels. But none of that helps the mother crying at Heathrow because she missed her sister's wedding. Or the man sleeping on the floor at Manchester Airport waiting for a flight he'll never board. Or the thousands refreshing airline apps hoping for answers that never come. People want accountability, they want clarity, they want to know who allowed this disaster to happen. Because this isn't a glitch, this isn't an accident. This is a warning. A warning of what will happen when 26 more EU countries switch on the same system. And that moment is coming fast while travellers sleep on airport floors and airline staff scramble for instructions that don't exist. The political world is exploding. Suddenly, this isn't just a travel crisis. It's a battlefield. Every party, every MP, every commentator is desperate to point fingers somewhere, anywhere, as long as it's not at themselves. And Finland's decision to enforce EES early becomes the spark that ignites the biggest post-Brexit argument since the withdrawal agreement itself. Finland is the first to speak. Their Ministry of the Interior releases a short, cold statement saying Finland has implemented the EU entry-exit system as required by European Union law. All third country travellers, including UK nationals, must comply. In other words, we followed the rules, not our problem. Blame Brussels if you want. Within hours, the European Commission responds with their own twist. Britain was told about the timelines through official diplomatic channels, and Finland did nothing wrong. Another way of saying, don't blame us. We told you. If the UK didn't prepare, that's on them. And just like that, the blame game kicks into high gear. Downing Street claims Finland moved earlier than planned. Brussels says the UK wasn't paying attention. Finland says they were simply obeying EU law. British Airlines say they received barely 48 hours notice, and stranded passengers say they received nothing. No warnings, no updates, no guidance, no instructions. Everyone points fingers, nobody accepts responsibility, and the people stuck in airports are left asking the same question. How can an entire continent implement a new border system and nobody tells the travellers who actually need to use it? But the real political firestorm ignites on British soil. Conservative MP Daniel Hargreaves goes on a morning radio show and tears into the government. He accuses Labour of catastrophic mismanagement of post-Brexit travel arrangements and claims Starmer's administration failed to protect British citizens from EU overreach. His message spreads quickly. Nigel Farage joins the chorus within minutes, going live on GB News to deliver his verdict with that familiar look of triumph. This is exactly what happens, he says, when you pretend Brexit didn't happen, when you happily sign up to EU border cooperation without demanding any control. We are right back where we started. Brussels calling the shots, the UK obeying. And if that wasn't enough, millions of viewers watched the clip of him saying the 6 words that go viral across British Twitter. This is what surrender looks like. Those words become the headline on dozens of newspaper front pages within hours. Meanwhile, that Labour MPs are scrambling. Desperate to defend the government, they insist this crisis is a technical issue, a temporary disruption, a miscommunication between border agencies. They say Finland acted too fast. They say airlines should have been ready. They say Brussels changed protocols at the last minute. But their words fall flat because the public isn't listening to excuses. They're watching videos of crying mothers, cancelled flights, angry crowds being escorted out of boarding zones, and long queues of stranded travellers staring at red screens that simply say their entry data missing. And then something even more damaging happens. A few Labour backbenchers start whispering to journalists. An unnamed MP tells The Guardian, We can't keep getting blindsided by EU policy changes. If we want cooperation without membership, we need constant communication. This situation was avoidable. That single quote spreads like wildfire online. It confirms what people already fear. The government wasn't prepared. They didn't plan. They didn't communicate. They didn't protect their own citizens before the system switched on. And the public anger only gets hotter. Radio call-ins are dominated by furious voices. TikTok is full of stranded couples and crying students. Twitter timelines are covered with messages like, "What did we even gain from Brexit?" And "How can the EU decide whether I get on a plane?" And "Why does my passport need Brussels permission?" The frustration is real, and it's growing, because this moment doesn't feel like an inconvenience. It feels like a symbol of something much bigger. The loss of control that people were promised would never happen again. Behind the scenes, British diplomats are desperately trying to contain the damage. They insist Finland acted earlier than other EU countries. They claim other nations, Spain, France, Italy, Greece, postponed their EES rollout to avoid exactly this kind of catastrophe. And that makes Finland's decision even more baffling. Why jump ahead? Why enforce it now? Why catch thousands of people in the crossfire? But Finland gives no apology, no explanation, no sympathy, only a quiet shrug and a reminder that the system is now EU law and the UK must comply like every other non-EU country for Keir Starmer. This is turning into a political nightmare. He came into office promising stability, competence and smooth relations with Europe. He promised to make Brexit work, not reopen the debate. But now newspapers around the world are showing images of British citizens blocked at gates, confused airport staff, and a government that looks shocked, powerless and unprepared. And the worst part, this isn't a one-day crisis. This is only the start. Because the EES system isn't going away, but it's about to expand. And if the government doesn't act fast, what happened in Finland today could be a preview of something far worse waiting just around the corner. Right now, as you watch this, thousands of British travellers are still sitting in terminals waiting for answers that nobody in power can give them. Families are trying to keep children calm as they sleep on airport chairs. Young students are refreshing their phones every few minutes, hoping for an email from their university saying their placement won't be cancelled. Older couples stare at departure boards, watching flight after flight switch from boarding to cancelled in real time. And the worst part is that none of them know when or if they'll be allowed to fly. Because the truth is painfully simple. Until their biometric data is accepted by a system that barely works, their holiday, their job, their future plans are frozen. And this is exactly why travel experts are calling Finland's EES enforcement the canary in the coal mine, a warning, a test, a small glimpse of a much bigger disaster waiting to unfold across the entire European Union. Because here's the brutal reality, this isn't going to stay in Finland. Not for long. Within months, Spain will turn it on, Greece will turn it on, France, Italy, Portugal, all will flip the same switch. And when they do, millions of British travellers could experience the same nightmare that started at Heathrow at 5 a.m. Every single UK holiday hotspot will be governed by the same system. Beaches in Spain, resorts in Greece, city breaks in France, summer trips to Italy, wedding flights to Portugal, every one of them controlled by a digital border that requires flawless biometric registration. Or you're not going anywhere. And if the UK government doesn't get ahead of this quickly, the chaos we're seeing right now could feel small compared to what's coming in 2026. The travel industry is already sounding the alarm. Airline executives are demanding emergency meetings with ministers. Tour operators are warning that customers could lose billions in holiday bookings if the problem isn't fixed before summer. Airport staff are begging for clear guidance because they cannot keep telling passengers, "We don't know." And the Foreign Office is scrambling to negotiate temporary exceptions, transitional periods, emergency workarounds, anything to avoid a full-blown travel meltdown. But behind all the official statements and political slogans, there's an even bigger question that nobody in Westminster wants to answer directly. How did Britain reach a point where its own citizens cannot travel freely without the approval of a foreign digital system? This moment shines a harsh light on the promises of the past. For years, politicians said Brexit would mean control, simpler borders, smoother travel, independence. But today, British citizens have less freedom to move across Europe than before. Instead of walking through with a passport, they now need biometric registration, EU authorisation and digital clearance. And that uncomfortable truth is forcing people to rethink what sovereignty really means. Because if you can't board your holiday flight without Brussels' green light, are you truly in control? If your passport depends on a system designed in another capital, where is the independence? These questions aren't theoretical anymore. They're real, they're urgent, and they're shaping how millions of people see the world after Brexit. As for Starmer's government, this crisis threatens the core of what he promised: stability, competence, and a better relationship with Europe. Right now, it doesn't look stable, it doesn't look competent, and it certainly doesn't look like a smooth relationship. Images of stranded passengers are circulating around the world. Political opponents are circling like sharks. Even Labour's own MPs are whispering concerns behind closed doors, and the public's patience is running out fast. Because when ordinary people can't even get on a plane to see family, attend weddings, start jobs, or take holidays they worked hard to afford, they don't care about political excuses. They want solutions. They want answers. They want someone to take responsibility. But here is the hard truth. The EES system isn't going away. ETIAS, the EU's new visa waiver, is coming next. More checks, more forms, more digital approvals. And unless the UK builds a proper system to integrate, communicate and prepare, the crisis we're witnessing today could be repeated again and again. A future where British travellers constantly face delays, refusals and biometric mismatches. A future where Europe becomes harder and more stressful to visit. A future where travel becomes a political battleground instead of a basic right. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire story: what this moment means for every British traveller watching. Because this isn't just a news headline. This isn't just another political fight on social media. This is a warning about the world we're stepping into. A world where your freedom to travel is controlled by digital systems you never see, never vote for, and rarely understand. A world where one technical decision in Brussels or Helsinki can ruin a holiday you saved for all year. A world where a simple red screen at an airport gate can change your entire week, your plans, your life. So now the question is yours. Did Finland do the right thing? Should the UK have prepared better? Is Brexit truly working for the people it was supposed to empower? Or are we discovering that sovereignty means far less when your passport depends on someone else's computer system? Tell me in the comments where you stand, because this isn't just a political crisis. It's a travel crisis that touches every single British family. And as this story keeps unfolding, I'll be right here tracking every update, every new rule, every sudden change, so you never find yourself stranded at a gate staring at the same red screen that has already ruined thousands of journeys. This is only the beginning.